One.
You're on.
One.
You're on.
Welcome to this 29th meeting of fiscal year 17 of the Milton Planning Board. And I'm Alex Whiteside, the chairman. And why don't the members and the other people at the table introduce themselves?
Brian Furs, member.
April Anderson Lamoureux, member.
Julia Getman, clerk.
Laura Masser, assistant town planner.
Denny Swinson, member.
Why don't you gentlemen introduce yourselves?
I am Jack Dolly from Northland Residential.
Alan Ackerman from Ryan Associates Landscape Architects.
And we're going to have, our first order of business is you're going to do some, you're going to tell us about how the landscaping is going at the project at the St. Pius site.
Thank you. So as we outlined in the letter to the board, we've framed where we are to date. We began clearing in 2015 for the project at Woodmere. And throughout most of 2016, we were doing site work and heavy construction and putting in foundations, beginning to prep the buffers. And that was in the middle of the drought. So in the letter, we outlined some of the effects of that and some of the surprises and challenges. The project, as it began to take shape, as we outline here, we had some trouble as we went through 2016 getting some of the buffer planting established. So Northland went through a couple of rounds of planting, but as the project came online with utility supports, irrigation, ability to irrigate, this year we feel like we're back on track, and that our planting, our buffer restoration, our tree preservation work is back where it should be with where we are with the building project process, as Jack has outlined in his letter to you, with the completion of buildings 1 through 4. More or less, the landscape is complete with those units, the home construction. We are in progress on buildings 10, 11, and 5 and 6, and planting is ongoing there, along with the buffer planting along Brush Hill. We've added a lot of plants in the last 2 weeks. In particular, we've planted out the hockey stick area, which is outlined in the exhibits prepared for you. As you recall, during the permitting process, we provided renderings of what we wanted those buffers to look like at the end, and what we thought the buffer, especially with the view in from Brush Hill Road, would look like. And we know that the experience last year was far from that. We feel with the planting now, we're back online with that. We've met with the neighbors on Cushing Road in particular to talk about the hockey stick planting. So the planting that went in there and the arrangement of the planting has shifted a bit since the conversations during the permitting process included a walking path there. No walking path was part of the final approved plan, so the planting is adjusted accordingly to address some view and access concerns in the neighborhood there.
Just Alan, let me jump in. You know, one of the mandates that I gave to Alan this spring as spring approached was that I was disappointed with our performance relative to our promises on planting and screening and preservation of existing vegetation. Last year, we were a raw site. There was a lot going on, and what planting we could put in, it became stressed with the drought conditions, and then we decided not to do any further planting because we couldn't water anything. So I asked him very deliberately. We had a site walk, I don't know when it was, sometime in March, and said we need to get ahead of this. We made representations. We have to walk the talk, and if it's on the plan and we need more, we need more. They had the hockey stick that had the plans called for a walking path at the very last end of the process. The neighborhood didn't want a walking path because they didn't want the hockey stick to turn into either a dog park or a drinking park. And so we met with that corner of Cushing and very deliberately rearranged the stock that we had prescribed there in such a way to effectively wall it off. And that work is in process. And the other thing that occurred was we identified a series of trees throughout the community that we felt were keepers and that needed to be protected, most of which we were able to maintain. However, we did, as we woke up this spring, realize that some didn't survive. They didn't leaf out. Some were on the keep list, some weren't on the keep list, but have to come down. One in particular is a spectacular tree, and it's a shame that it didn't make it. Combination of probably some stress last year and construction stress, and we have to take it down. A couple of big pine trees that were in the buffer zones that have browned out that we want to take down. So we've outlined them in this correspondence. The special permit calls for, if you will, a quid pro quo. If something needs to be taken down, how is it to be replaced? A per caliber inch sort of mathematical formula. So rather than just going out and cutting the trees down, we wanted to come in and identify that we had those that loss or failures or attrition, that we do, they are dangerous and they do need to come down. They are located in certain locations called for on the map, and we propose to replace them in the following way. And you know, do it, if you will, transparently, as opposed to, well, we just got to do it, and then ask for forgiveness after the fact. So that's a little bit of why I felt it was appropriate to come here personally, as opposed to just send in a two-page memo to comply with the quarterly project update requirement. So we can go into more detail with that. We can review it with the town planner and assistant town planner, so that they are comfortable and it can report back to you, and or Joe Prondak, the zoning enforcement officer, or we can have a site walk and show you what we're talking about. But we do want to have a site walk, irrespective of that. When this model opens in mid-July, not January, I think it would be nice to get everyone out there. And
What are you suggesting, a site walk?
if the board would be inclined, I think there's no downside other than the use of time.
Well, we could do it before
Do what we did tonight.
another meeting. That seems to work pretty well.
Worked fine for me today.
Yeah.
So maybe how's the 8th of July looking at for people?
The meeting that week?
That's a
We're not
Meeting.
That's the, no, that's,
22nd, is that?
13th, I think. we're
13th
meeting.
is the next meeting, I think.
13th.
I saw
Oh,
that
okay.
today.
Well, how's the 13th sound? Start at St. Pius, we could start at 7. Depending on, I would think we could start at 7.
I can start at 7.
I think we could start at 7. Why don't we do that? Unless,
I may not be in town, but that's okay. I will
you could always.
do
you
a
could always
drive-through, and I'll stop by on a Sunday to walk through the model.
Walk through it, exactly. Okay,
I would say, though, we'll either have to walk very quickly, or I would budget, 25 minutes. We won't get far. Just to walk around the loop once will probably take us 20 minutes, because someone will stop.
so you're suggesting half an hour?
Yes, I am.
That works. Well, it depends, because we could do it at 6:30 if.
I'm not going to probably make it, so
All right,
I
let's
wouldn't
do it
base
at
it on
6.
me.
Let's do it at 6:30,
Okay,
if that's okay.
that's fine.
And Cheryl doesn't get a
Cheryl, I'm
say
sure will
because
be
she's
there.
not here.
Sure, she'll be excited to see us.
All right, so we'll see you then.
Okay.
And thanks. A good report. It sounds like It's a pretty spectacular project.
It's coming along, and we're pleased that we want it to mature a little bit. You know, the raw edges of, you know, the plant went in yesterday, kind of looks okay, but it doesn't look like it was, 2 weeks makes a big difference. So, we will see you on the 13th at.
6:30.
6:30.
Thank
Bring
you.
Donuts, iced tea.
Okay, and
Donuts, please.
actually, we've got some minutes. I've got some suggested changes. And we have, while we're reviewing the minutes, we're going to meet, as you just heard, on the 13th of July, and then again on July 27th. Now, while the minutes are being reviewed, citizens speak. Are there any citizens who want to speak on something other than 333 Brush Hill Road? All right, seeing none, we will go on to Lauren, did Mr. Hannigan contact the office to say that 15 Bathors
Yes,
Street is off the list?
that's correct.
So it's been continued generally.
Okay.
So that disposes of that.
Any?
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hit the crack.
Thank you.
So it's, what does that mean?
It means that, it probably means they're going to do a subdivision,
Oh, okay.
They've requested an extension, so they
Right.
will not be here tonight.
Okay.
but they, you know, why
Say till
why
when.
take a denial if you can continue it for a while?
Okay.
So the minutes, what do we think?
We need to do the site walk separately because I need to abstain from that vote.
You need to abstain from
I was
that?
not there, so we can do the other two together if you don't mind. So I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from, can you read those two dates for me, Denny?
June 8th and May 25th.
As amended by Mr. Whiteside. And Denny, do you have any?
So there's another one on June 6th.
Well, we're going to do that next.
Okay,
So
so,
we got a second.
So-
okay. I second.
Do we have a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now the sidewalk minutes will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the site walk, June 6th
A second.
minutes.
Second.
All right. We've had our discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One
One
abstention.
abstention.
Do you want this back, or do I give it?
All right, now we'll give these to Julia.
Okay.
And that, Julia, here you are. Thank you. Now, we're going to go to 333 Brush Hill Road. And we have had a site walk at 333 Brush Hill Road. And we have a attorney here who is going to pick up where we left off.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board.
You're being recorded and televised, so you might as well identify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is David Udy from the law firm of Mirioni, Shaughnessy, and Udy, and I represent the Mansions at Brush Hill Condominium Trust. First of all, let me thank the board and the assistant town planner and the clerk for coming to the site to do a site walk today. We appreciate it. We know that's extra time that you're devoting to this issue, and we appreciate it. I guess, unless you guys have questions, I'll cut to the chase, and I think everyone agrees. I'm in receipt of Mr. Prondock's, the building commissioner's letter dated June 20th, 2017. I assume you all have that as well. while we may not, my client may not agree with everything that Mr. Prondak said, we think he does make the point that is, I think, at the crux of this issue, that he believes that there's been a violation of condition 9 of your site plan approval concerning the trees. I mean, he says that significant clearing of the lot and tree cutting has occurred at the site in violation of condition 9 of the site plan approval, quote unquote. That's on page 2 of his letter. He also says at the end of his letter, all parties must be aware that no occupancy permits will issue for the new single-family homes until all issues of concern are addressed and resolved to the satisfaction of the planning board. So the concern that my client has here is that this developer is a LLC entity that was created for one purpose only, to develop and hold these units that we believe is essentially assetless. So once these units get occupancy permits and are sold, there's no redress for my client to address anything with the site or the trees or anything. So the process that we would like the planning board to consider and respectfully adopt as a pathway forward to get these units built out and sold and to get this project finished is as follows. We would, you guys, I think, are also in receipt of the letter that I submitted to the town. I submitted multiple copies along with a thumb drive of videos and photos. In it, we include, I think as our final exhibit, a report from our arborist expert, John Coppinger, whom you met this evening, along with his son. Mr. Coppinger, in his report, outlines a very detailed remediation plan to address the violation of the site plan concerning the trees. The process that we would like the planning board to consider is to require, and we would like, you can do it in one of two ways. I mean, Mr. Prondak seems to be ceding somewhat his authority as an enforcement officer to you to carry out what needs to be done here to resolve this. A secondary way is Mr. Prondak points out in the beginning of his letter that because the original special permit was obtained by my client and then the development rights were assigned to this LLC and they have a site plan approval through you, is that as owner, according to your site plan approval, the owner can apply to amend the site plan approval. Well, as I indicated in my letter, the condominium trust acts on behalf of the unit owners who own the common area land. I think you asked the question, Brian, about the common area land. It is common area where this is occurring, where this development project is occurring. So either through Mr. Prondak asking you to enforce what the remedial measures for the violation, or to amend the site plan approval on application from the owner, because that's what your site plan approval says, my client being the trust who acts on behalf of the unit owners concerning the common areas, that's how a condominium works, to amend the site plan approval to adopt this process. The process being that the remediation measures that our expert introduces, the arborist, John Coppinger, be fulfilled in a way that's verifiable, so that the developer hires a licensed arborist to create, a real arborist, not just a landscape architect, but an arborist, as well as someone who can create a plan to create and affect John Coppinger's remediation plan, to show where the new trees are going to go, to show what has to happen, that this process be carried out and completed and verified by our arborist expert, John Coppinger, to make sure it was done properly as a precondition before occupancy permits can be issued. So that if everything is done according to what our arborist asks, then that can lead to the units being legally occupied. In addition, and I brought copies with me tonight, we've also hired a professional engineer by the name of Ralph Noblin. He's got over 30 years of experience in Massachusetts. He's walked the site, and he has found, in addition to the tree issues, numerous other miscellaneous, I'll call them, construction infractions that we believe exist on site. We showed you one of them tonight where the roadway was supposed to stop for utility work and went up another, 100 feet, digging into the roads, destroying common area property. A lot of these miscellaneous items exist. We would ask that part of the process that the planning board adopt, pursuant to Mr. Prondak's directive, is that once we have agreement on what this list is, that these items be remediated and verified that they've been remediated by our engineer. The third piece of the process that we'd like the planning board to consider, Mr. Noblin was out on site last week, and he expressed some concern and reservation with how the drainage field is looking, that big field that you looked at. We are going to take a look at that and hire a licensed professional to look at that. If, in fact, there are issues with that, we will provide a report to the planning board for your consideration. And if there's significant issues, we'd like that to be the third part of the process that gets addressed properly. My client just wants the site to be done properly and according to your directive, what happened in the original site plan approval. I think we can all agree, although I will not speak for you, there's been some significant violations with respect to the trees. As you'll see in those photos, there are more issues on site that have occurred. We will supplement this with an actual written report explaining why we believe these to be construction issues. But the concept that I'd like to put forward to the planning board tonight, either through an amendment of the site plan approval or through Mr. Prondak saying that everything has to be addressed to your satisfaction before occupancy permits can be issued, that we agree on a process that's verifiable with true licensed professionals. I think the first arborist to walk on this site was my client's expert, who was brought in there. There was never any arborist that was employed to deal with anything with this site before my client hired one. And if you look in the construction management plan from the developer, an arborist was supposed to be involved in pre-construction meetings to preserve and protect trees, which never happened. I won't belabor the other facts that we've already put before you, but I think it's very clear that certain things that were supposed to happen with tree protection, construction management plan, taking care of the trees before anything was to occur on site never happened. And that for over a year, there was never any protection measures put in place. And I think you saw that the couple of fences that were put around a couple of trees were totally useless and didn't do anything. We're pretty much need the planning board to act here to help us to restore the site to what it should be. And if there's any additional information that I can provide, either from our arborist, from our engineering expert, or from our drainage expert, we can get that to you in short order. But what we'd like for you guys to consider is putting that process in place as a pathway forward to get this project done and to get it done correctly so that the developer can get the occupancy permits and sell the units. In addition, Mr. Prondak alludes to as-built plans that will be done. And we'll be looking at those as-built plans very, very closely when they come in to see if they actually show what's happening on site, because that's another way to measure if what's been done is actually shown on those plans actually exists. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this proposed process. I'm happy to provide you with any other information that you want, but we're very appreciative that you took the time to come out tonight and to hear us again at 2 consecutive meetings. So thank you.
The planting plan that we have, this thing,
Yes, sir.
what's the history of that?
So here's the history as I understand it. Your site plan approval was issued in October of 2015. In it, it required 2 things: a landscaping, hardscaping plan to protect trees, and it also required a construction management plan. Before construction started, construction began in the fall of 2015, or perhaps even a little earlier. Thereafter, all the site work, clearing the site, putting in foundations, running construction vehicles everywhere, leaving construction debris on site, happened for over a year without any tree protection plan put in place. In November of 2016, Mr. Chairman, which I believe that plan that you just referenced, it's by MKA. It's dated, I believe, November 21st or November 16th, 2016. That was submitted to I think, the town planning office by Mr. McKenna.
Was there any requirement that we approve it?
I'm sorry, sir?
Any requirement that we approve this plan?
Requirement in your site plan approval?
Yeah.
Well, you required a plan to be submitted before construction was supposed to start, and that didn't happen. And
Planning director,
Right.
not to the board, to the planning director.
I assume one of the purposes of it was to protect trees on site. And, so to me, I would say, regardless of the process, Mr. Chairman, that plan, the MKA plan, was totally useless because it was submitted after this stuff happened, a year.
As I see it, is this. I mean, what's happened has happened, and you want to do the best you can to get this thing completed. And we're going to need a landscaping plan. No question. And if this isn't a landscaping plan, then we're going to have to get a landscaping plan. It seems to me that we should ask Mr. Prondak to ensure that whatever tree measures are in the tree protection plan, that they be implemented now. It may be too late, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if there is a tree, it should be, and there are requirements, they should be imposed with respect to that. And we can
Repair and
ask,
protection plan probably at this point, repair and
we
protection.
can ask Mr. Prondak to do that. As far as revegetating the site in accordance with a amended landscape plan, we're going to need a amended landscape plan. And then we're going to have to require that the, presumably, I mean, presumably before the last unit is sold, that the landscaping has to be completed. But to do that, you're going to have to make a motion to amend the site plan approval, requesting what you want us to do. And then we're going to have a public hearing and reach a decision. It seems to me that that's the way we'd go about it, and I'm thinking that in the decision, we would require certain planting and certain planting measures, and consideration of when they had to be completed, whether or not it's before any units were sold or before a certain number were sold. That would be a subject of discussion, because since the units are going to be sold for $1 million, presumably, one unit would, the proceeds from one unit would certainly cover the remediation, even as your expert outlined it. But that's something that can be discussed. Yes.
Just to speak to that, I do a lot of this type of litigation in my practice, construction litigation, and I have had a lot of cases with developers. I represent a lot of condominium associations. The devil is, as I'm sure you know, in the details in these issues, because just because one unit is going to sell for $1 million, it doesn't mean it's not mortgaged for $900,000, $22. So the issue is, and we'll put this in our formal motion
Okay.
to the board, but the issue really is it equitable and fair for any units to be sold when there's an existing violation of, what you required?
Well, and again, since your arborist suggested some of these trees may succumb a couple of years from now, it would make sense to have some sort of bond posted to ensure that things are done right. Yes.
So, I agree. I mean, look, I'm sure there's a mortgage on this thing to do a construction loan. If not, great, good for them. But so I think perhaps the bond is the way to go. I think the board has been pushing for more of those in the last several applications, and there are some numbers in your letter that may indicate the amount of the bond that might be appropriate. I'd want you to give some consideration about to whom the bond would go. For instance, I think the trees and the landscaping plan should be a bond that can run with the site plan. But I'd probably suggest that damages to the common area might be something that could be handled with a bond that runs to the condo association, because it's not something that is, I'm not sure you want us getting into having to come in and repair different parts of your property that are damaged during construction. So I think I would prefer to see the board dealing specifically with a plan, and then damages that are to the common areas going forward could be remunerated, by a bond to the condo association or something. I think whatever plan comes before this board needs to have a review by either a third party paid for by the developer that the condo association and the planning board are okay with, because I think we want to make sure that whatever plan is submitted is appropriate to replace what was there before, and that could be done in conjunction with the exhibit that was attached to our site plan permit that showed the trees that were supposed to be protected where possible. And then that same arborist would hopefully be able to come back and inspect the planting afterwards and make sure that it was done correctly and that the trees are going to be, their trees as planted will survive. And the only other thing I want to make sure that we're thinking about as a board, if this comes back for consideration, and it's probably less of a concern for your client, is the stabilization of that back hill
Yes.
and how it's affecting the abutters on Truman Parkway. Because there's definitely some damage at the bottom of that hill, and we need to make sure that that water runoff is corrected, because that water runoff is actually specifically referenced in our permit as something to be worried about, and it's obviously been exacerbated. So just something else that I think we as a board should be thinking about as we
But
think
the
about.
arborist said that if that hillside is not stabilized, it's just going to,
So then it is a
wipe out
concern
the
of his
woods.
client then. So, okay, so then it
so,
is a
but
problem.
we want that, we want the condo association to pay attention to that.
One thing that I would also suggest to you, I know that Lisa Eggleston, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, was invited as a peer review engineer for the proposed drainage work. I would strongly recommend that you consider having her back out on site to take a look at what's been going on there as far as the drainage work, to see what opinion she has, if any, about what's happening there.
So Lisa has retired.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll need to find another, I think
Another
that was already charged, something Bill was charged with, so you could remind him, Lauren, that we need a new third-party reviewer for our stormwater, because Lisa is no longer in Massachusetts.
But you're going to look at the drainage with your engineer.
Yes, sir. So just so I understand my.
But I mean, that slope doesn't have any drainage. It just drains onto
Right.
Truman Parkway.
Which we have pictures of from the other
But
abutter.
I think there was, I don't have the plans.
I do.
They're right here. The approved plans. I thought we dealt with that on the
I don't think we had any idea that that slope was,
I think they was, oh no, we definitely talked about that slope, because we have actually recharge basins behind each home that run to that field for this reason. We were trying to capture everything that was going on in these backyards and bring it over here, because we had
well, I
testimony.
mean,
from
was
some
there
of
a
these
level spot, or are these recharge basins on the hillside?
people. No, they're on this hillside. It looks like did they level out the backyard?
If I could just add an update to this, when Bill and I went on site last week, the recharge basins behind each of the 3 units had not been completed yet, so they were waiting to finish that to be able to put the retaining walls in for that slope.
Is there
That's what they did. They leveled it up.
a stormwater protection plan in place? SWPPP, which really should, isn't there supposed to be one? I
Yeah.
think there is.
Yeah.
Is there one?
No.
Not that we know of.
It's referenced in their construction management plan.
So they need that as well.
Oh,
Oh.
well, we will inquire further about this, because if there isn't one, there's got to be one.
And just to come full circle, I mean, I know you, look, I know how busy you guys are with your, with daily life. I mean, if you just read the if you haven't read it already, read the construction management plan. I mean, your site plan approval says all construction is supposed to comply with it. So if you read the construction management plan, it's very detailed as to what was supposed to happen here. It said, you know, all, like the stormwater plan, tree protection before work started, that's part of your site plan approval I would submit to you. That would be my contention. And none of it was followed. So,
So this, excuse me,
Yeah,
this
sorry.
is why I'm confused as to why our building inspector doesn't have the ability to enforce this permit in the attached documents, which I think are in violation in a number of places beyond landscaping number 9.
I think he does. He
Well,
needs help fixing it now.
he needs something, I mean, the tree protection plan, it's probably too late for the tree protection plan, so something different has to be done, and he doesn't have that something different. I mean, he will, once we give it to him, he's going to have to enforce it.
But what about the time between now and then?
We're going to,
Hope for the
well,
best.
hopefully we could get a stormwater protection plan in place.
But even immediately, there's trees with wood chips that are up too high.
Right.
and
They
that
should
be fixed
start
to
stabilizing all the trees. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're going to ask the building inspector to
shouldn't be
make sure
parking
that
there, the
whatever
material
trees are
should be
left
back.
are properly protected.
With respect, here's the issue that we're having. There have been a lot of plans that have been put in place at various points, but respectfully, they're not being enforced. And the building inspector's letter, and I totally respect where he's coming from, but he says, for example, on page 2 of his letter, a construction management plan has been put in place, therefore this specific violation is abated. Respectfully, it's not, because it was put in place 2 years after construction started, and it's not being followed. So I don't know what else we can do to
Well, you're going
respectfully
to-
ask Mr.
you're-
Prondak to read the fine print of what was required here, but he seems to be delegating this responsibility of enforcement to you. And so you all have his blessing, it appears, in this letter, to tell this developer what to do.
That's what
We
we're
could-
trying to
We
do.
could tell the building inspector
No,
what
thanks.
we would like him to tell the developer.
Because we're going to have to appeal this decision within 30 days to the ZBA,
Well,
and that's another town board.
Look, I think that that's up to you. What we want is to have you file for an amendment of the site plan approval, because the site plan approval does not deal with the situation as it is. We've got to deal with the
There are hay bales
situation
back
as it
there.
is and see what we can
Walk
do
around the
about
side of
it.
the site.
When would you like to see the motion? As soon as
Well,
possible?
no, I mean, you get it to us as soon as possible because we have to advertise it.
Yep. Okay, will
So,
do.
but what we're thinking probably the 22nd of July.
Okay.
And I mean, the problem is, in the meantime, I don't think anybody wants a cease and desist order out there.
Right,
Because
because we
we
don't-
need them
we
to
need
get,
that
we need them
storm
to start fixing stuff.
Yeah, we need the storm drainage. I wonder, and I don't know if this is out of our jurisdiction, but could we do a quick bullet list for Joe Prondak and even just say, while they're working on that, just
He-
the
he
storm
got
drain,
this.
okay.
He got this. Did he not?
Yes, he did.
This
But I
is
mean,
what he,
we're on the
this is
site
what he was
tonight. We're on
responding
the
to.
site tonight, and there are vehicles parked right next to a car, so they're not following the.
I don't know that he can,
He can.
enforce sections of the permit.
So
Can
with,
he-
res-
can
with-
Anything
can
that's
he-
in the permit, he can enforce.
so with respect, you can ask your town council this question, but what I would tell you is under Chapter 40A, he is the enforcement officer. His job is to enforce
The permit.
the zoning decisions, and the special permit and your site plan approval are linked together. So his job is, in my understanding of the law, is to enforce it. So if there's a tree protection plan in place and there's a red car parked on a tree root, under a tree, and we send him a letter saying nothing's happening on site, and there's still cars being parked alongside of a tree and construction debris littered all around trees, it's not being enforced.
Understood.
It just is interesting. We get back to all the discussions about site plan approval. And you might include an amendment of the special permit. And I'll look at that. Just so that, I mean, you cite our bylaw. He has the right to enforce any provision of this bylaw or of any permit or decision thereunder. And the question, of course, some people have is whether a site plan approval is such a decision.
Well, your special permit references site plan approvals.
Right.
Yeah.
But as long as
I get it.
he wants something and we can give it to him. We certainly are going to ask that he go out and protect whatever trees there are left.
With respect, one thing you may want to point his attention to is the tree protection measure on the MKA plan, and make sure for all remaining trees, it's being enforced. I mean, there's construction materials leaning up against trees, there's cars parked under, the drip lines of trees. It's a very easy thing to do, I would think.
And we're going to want him to do, we need some temporary management of that slope.
Yep.
Yep. more so than what's just, there are hay bales there today, but they're out of place, they're saturated, they're a mess. I went up the other side of the hill at one point, so.
Okay, does that, I think that gives you enough to do.
Yes, and thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
so Alex, who will direct Mr. Prondak to,
I will advise him that the board would like the trees to be protected as much as
and the hill to be
possible.
stabilized?
And the drainage situation, yeah.
And that the temporary drainage measures don't appear at all adequate.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to note,
Thank you.
both the tree issue and the drainage issue are both noted as additional conditions in the site plan approval and the special permit.
Okay. So now we're, what else do we have? We have zoning. We have zoning. Okay, so let's see if we can't determine what we're going to do this October. And we're going to do signs, I think, and non-conforming buildings.
Residential buildings?
Yeah, non-conforming residential buildings.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to do bed and breakfast because we need a lot more input from people as to, I mean, April sent an email saying that there were a couple of, not April, Cheryl sent an email saying, saying what? I guess she was talking about condominiums. But I think that condominiums in existing houses and bed and breakfasts in existing houses and how we compatibilize it with Airbnb, which seems to be going strong without any help from us. Okay, what else are we going to do? We think that the selectmen are going to do noise,
I saw Katie's email on that.
and that would include construction noise and amplified sound, I believe.
Did she email all of us, or just you? Oh,
Alex and
good.
What else?
Are we going to consider the zoning change for the Conley project in East Milton?
The Conley,
Is that his?
Ned's, for one thing, we can't do a PUD on 15,000 square feet. We need 60,000 square feet. So zoning it would be tough. Ned's feeling is that a variance would be the way to go, and I think that's all right.
Okay.
What about, Brian, you had a, some sort of a fund, a revolving fund.
Yeah, so I'll work on that again with,
Get the Brighton or the Newton measure. Get a
Get-
copy of the Newton zoning, and we'll look at it.
So on that point, I was talking with MAPC a week or two ago, and they mentioned that they do a lot of work with CTPS. Do you know what that is? It's an organization. It's like a traffic management organization of MassDOT. Are you familiar with CTPS, Alex?
No.
So they inform the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan, which is the funding mechanism for city and town road projects and state road projects, and they're a data-driven agency. But apparently MAPC works with CTPS to kind of do some top-level data, and it helps inform cities and towns on how to create these mitigation projects or funds. Yeah. And Mark Dreisen of MAPC said that he would be more than happy to send somebody out here to just give us a quick overview at one of our meetings if we wanted to spend 15 or 30 minutes thinking about it before we
That's great.
put our fund together. And I meant to share that with you and I forgot. So I don't know if that sounds like an opportunity, but if so, maybe Lauren can follow up.
That'd be great. I know Dedham just established a mitigation fund recently. I found that out today.
I think they helped them
I bet
draft
they did,
theirs.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
found-
why don't we see if they want to come out on the 8th or the 13th? It may be too, but the 13th, that would probably be a good time, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean,
If they can do it.
I can reach out.
so I'll connect with you tomorrow, Lauren, and we can figure it out.
Okay, we've got the ban on marijuana sales establishments.
Which may have become a lot easier to deal with
With the new,
the new legislation that seems
If
to be
it-
percolating, that we
Right.
would be able to just say no altogether if we so choose.
just zone it no,
Right.
rather than have to zone it no and go to the voters.
Right.
But I think that they're going to do that.
Doesn't require any action from us just yet anyways.
Not yet.
Yeah. I forgot my list. You don't have your list. do you?
Signs, of course,
I have your list if that was-
we're really talking the business signs, and
I forgot it.
maybe there will be a chance to do something with temporary signs in residence districts, but maybe not. Most probably not. But this is six, this is 5 zoning items.
Can you remind us what's on there?
Signs, non-conforming houses, noise, revolving fund, ban on marijuana sales.
What's our feeling on signs? Maybe this is not a question for tonight, but I think we had a conversation about making the bylaw pretty simplistic and then referencing a sign design guideline book that would be put together by the sign
Right, I
committee
mean,
so that
we're
we can
not going
change
to,
them without having to go back to
zone
zoning.
what the sign is supposed to look like. We're
Good.
going to
Zone
Create a
the mechanism.
process.
have there's going to be a sign design, and we should let the selectmen have the final word over that.
Well, I
Thought we
think-
were going to ZBA.
No, but in formulating the standards for signs, the sign review committee comes up with the booklet, and it's subject to approval by the
Board
selectmen.
of Selectmen.
And then the Board of Appeals can enforce it, and that way we've got the elected body in it, and
Yes.
it isn't the planning board.
That
So-
makes sense.
I would recommend that if we're going to move forward with pushing sign discretion to a guideline or a design guideline, that we probably let the sign review committee know that they ought to take a good look at their design guidelines, because they're going to be basis upon our zoning going
You know,
forward.
their guidelines are pretty
We
good.
like them? Okay.
And if they needed more time, we could make it effective some other date.
Okay.
Are the guidelines online?
I think that they are.
Yeah.
I think, and bicycles. There's something about bicycles. Do we remember what it was? I think I might have the
Bicycle
email.
parking in multifamily dwellings.
Oh, bicycle parking.
Requiring dedicated bicycle parking.
Bicy-
But I don't know, was that a recommended
Zone
bylaw?
that, or is that just a request that
Yeah,
we just do it on the go forward?
I mean, that's what I thought it was, but I don't know.
Oh, but they want to have it retroactive to when you do a substantial renovation. But
Were they suggesting that we put that in as a condition, or of our approval
bicycle
process?
parking, they would like, they trust us a lot, but they would like something in the zoning saying that you've got to do something about inside bicycle
Sheltered.
parking.
Right.
I think that, shall we do it? They want us to do
I
it.
think we should discuss it.
All right, let's,
I have some thoughts on that.
let's,
Yeah, I mean,
We have to be careful. I mean, Cambridge has taken that to an extreme and actually requires heated outdoor bike storage. Other places require you to have a bike storage area in your building. For the most part, I do see them get used, so it's worth a discussion. When I see a multifamily building, then they have a bike storage area. It's usually full of bikes.
Now, is there like a limit? So depending on the number
That's the problem, is how
of.
many do you do,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
One per
that's-
unit would be a huge amount of space for a developer to have to figure out where to put them.
And I'm thinking it's probably locationally driven. You know,
Right.
sometimes, depending on where the project is, like if,
I
like the
wish.
Hendry's site, for instance, is right on the bike trail.
Right.
That
So
makes sense.
that would be a place we would think would
But
get
Brush Hill
heavily,
Road, you can't ride a bike, so.
or some dirt road or something, you know, I mean, it might be a little different. I think it's great, I think
we
it's a
should
great
definitely
idea.
discuss it. I think it's going to be it's going to have lots of opinion. I actually don't think a lot of people are going to have a problem with it. I think the devil's going to be in the details of figuring out, to your point, where we require it, how many we require per unit.
Well, that's why I would recommend a little bit more flexibility than having something.
More of an encouraging,
formulaic in
more
the
of
zoning.
more of a case by case encouragement.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, it can be a advisory zoning requirement, like the design standards.
Right.
In fact, it probably should be a design standard.
That's where it feels like it
That
should
That
be.
might be just the right place to put it.
That's where it feels like it should be.
so that wouldn't be a zoning change, right?
We have some design guidelines in the
In the
some
zoning?
of the in some of the zoning, I think, but
Well, I mean, it could be, yeah, it would be,
you could put it in the parking
whatever is going forward, whatever might be going forward, whatever zoning might be going forward,
The
we
other-
could put it in it.
some communities do put it in the parking section of their bylaw, and they say whenever possible,
Make
bike
accommodations.
bike accommodations should be made at the discretion of the planning board or something. And then it's a reference; it's not a requirement. And that might be where we can put it.
I think that would be great, something like that, rather than specify one per unit or
Right,
something.
which is
Right. I think
does that
that's,
apply to Fuller Village?
There's so many applications, it's hard to know. But I do want to say I'm really happy that the Bike Advisory Committee brought it forward.
Yeah.
And it's nice to hear from other boards and committees when they have ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
well, I think that we should be responsive.
I agree.
Yeah.
Waiver of some sort of addition to the cluster bylaw saying that waivers shall be sparingly granted.
I don't even know, I liked the language you just used.
No, he's talking about something different now, right?
What?
Have we moved on from bikes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
I'm
talking
sorry.
about- yeah, I mean, an amendment to the cluster bylaw saying waivers should be limited
Oh.
to
Well,
less than 50% of the requirements or something.
I think that, I think we should leave it.
I think we should
should
leave it
leave it
alone. I
too.
think we've been very clear that we're not going to be as flexible as
Right.
we have in the past. I think
All right, well, I think
happy.
this is
It's a pretty good list.
I think that this is a
Very
perfectly
robust list.
reasonable group
And then
of,
someone, I'm sure Ned Corcoran will come up with 3 things to bring at the last minute, so we'll look at them
He
then.
probably will.
So when does the warrant close for the October meeting?
In August.
So there was one last thing on your, you had my neighborhood
4
there.
meetings,
What?
3 meetings
Fee
between now and then, I think.
So who's drafting
Oh,
these things?
what is
Do I
that
need to
discussion?
recuse
Do you
myself?
know anything about the application fee for 1259 Brush Hill Road?
Yes, actually.
Why don't you
Just a
tell
point
us?
of order, should I recuse myself because that's my neighborhood and I recused myself when that topic came up? Just 2 minutes?
On the application fee?
You have a financial stake in whether or not we get permits. They have a
No.
permit waiver, I don't think, but
Okay.
it's your decision. It's,
I mean, if it's 2 minutes, just call me.
Well, I don't think you have to.
I don't think you
Okay.
do
I don't
either,
think
Jenny.
you
I
have to.
understand
You
why
can-
you did on the
if-
A&R.
Yeah,
but
the
I don't-
A&R makes
this is
And we're
different.
Okay.
probably not even going to vote on
probably no
it.
vote.
Okay, it's non-voting.
What's the
Okay.
issue?
And you can always listen and
You can always
decide.
abstain.
Yeah.
Okay,
Marion might be here.
She,
Oh, okay.
no, she had been here. She had to go to the zoning board of appeals, so I can fill you in on that. It's about the fee. They had submitted at their last A&R, $3,000 that was cashed when they were planning for 5 lots in the application fee. They just submitted a check that has not been cashed yet for $1,500 in May for the revised A&R with 4 lots. So they're wondering if they can apply their former check from September of 2016, or if you will require them to submit this new application fee.
That they've already paid us? We
They've
just
given
haven't
the check,
cashed
it
yet?
has not been cashed.
It is $1,500.
Yes.
I think that we need the dough.
I do too.
I'm not a big fan of the fee waivers.
I'm not either. And I feel like if they wanted to waive the fee, they should have asked before they cut us the check.
Fee waivers are,
Or when they made the application.
Right.
right, I think that,
I don't, yeah,
that's,
I
I
think
think that's right.
Cash the check.
Well, the check is probably stale by now.
Yeah, why haven't we cashed it?
All right, I think that we're done.
I will move that we adjourn to
Right,
Smith's Road. Move that we adjourn.
Yeah, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.